Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're talking about Jonathan Hickman, The Fantastic Four Complete Collection, Volume 3. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent. You can follow me on Instagram, BK's Bullets, find out things I'm reading, hints at upcoming videos. I'll release new videos or reels on there, so check us out on Instagram. Now, Fantastic Four Volume 3. This book is strange, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I recorded a long video about this. I didn't say how long, but it was like 20 minutes long, and it was epic. It was fantastic. I had a great time talking about this book to the camera for 20 minutes. However, I forgot to turn on the mic. Yes, I use a separate mic setup, and I just did not switch to the on button. And this one's currently on, so that's good. So I don't know if this review will be as good as the last one, but it may be a little bit more concise because I remember the things I was saying or what I was trying to say. So my main thesis on this volume is that it takes off like a rocket ship, but ultimately feels like you're going nowhere. And I think a rocket ship is an apt thing. Like a roller coaster, you can see where the track is going ahead of time. You can see the turns. You get some anticipation because you can see ahead of you. But you have the real excitement when you go up through a turn or a loop-to-loop, whatever, a corkscrew. You're having fun as you're on the ride. This one is definitely a rocket. Like it takes off right from the start of the first issue here and just zooms all the way to the end. And when you get to your destination, when you're out floating in space, you're just like, wait, why did we do this way? We could have gone a little bit slower. I could have ridden a roller coaster. Like, this wasn't that fun at all, even though it felt like it would be fun at the very beginning. So that's my thesis here on this volume. So we've had two other volumes of Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. I remember one I wasn't very hot on. Volume 2, which is this one, I think I liked a little bit more because you could see where things were building, or he started to build things here with the different Inhuman cities, the Queens of Black Bolt, all that sort of stuff. This one falters a lot, and also because of that rocket ship thing. I mean, there's so much. This is basically like an event book for the Marvel Universe that never gets referenced ever again. But at the same time, there's so many references or things that happen outside the Fantastic Four sphere that Hickman is pulling from, that there's no like editor's notes or anything. So reading this book 15 years later, it is hard to follow in terms of like what's going on. Like Black Bolt was dead. How? Why are they queens and kings of Hala in the Kree Empire? I think that has to do with Reign of Kings, Realm of Kings, War of Kings, all that stuff, which I have not read. So a little bit of explanation here, an editor's note or whatever would have been helpful to go look at that Wikipedia. Now, yeah, I could do that myself, but I'm just saying, like definitively, I have no clue what's going on with the Inhumans in here. Much less Hickman doesn't recap or anything. That's one thing I don't like about Hickman, is that he assumes you've read everything, or he assumes you don't need to read everything to follow his stuff, when the opposite is true. I feel like you need to read a whole lot of stuff happening outside with these other characters that appear in here to really follow along. Spider-Man is on the cover of this book, but he is not used. He is not used. Like, the second book had the first 5 issues of FF where Spider-Man joins the Future Foundation, as it were, and that has like a little bit of setup, like here's what we're going to do now that Johnny Storm is dead. And then it immediately shifts with issue number 6 in here to get on this rocket ship of a ride of an event, and it never follows that path of the Future Foundation ever again. So it's kind of weird in that way. And Spider-Man is not a character that Hickman uses to any good. Like, he's barely present in the book. He has a couple of moments, but even those, they're not the standout Spider-Man moments that you would expect to get from Spidey actually joining the FF for like a featured run or anything like that. Like when She-Hulk joined the FF, or you had Black Panther and Storm join the FF when Reed and Sue were doing their own thing. Post-Civil War, like all those had real stories that you could see, oh, well, this team dynamic is different because this happens. There's nothing like that with Spider-Man in here. And in fact, I think if you want to go read those, I remember reading the Amazing Spider-Man book at the time, and that had a lot more of Spider-Man being in the FF stories in his book rather than in the FF book, which I find really weird. Now, I know he's doing like an event thing, but it just seems like a waste to add Spider-Man in here. It seems like a sales bump thing to throw Spider-Man in the FF and not use him. That's kind of what I'm relating it to. Although if you look at the covers, like he's barely on the covers at all. So at least in these last couple of issues. So it's like, is it a marketing thing? Was it a gimmick just for the first 5 issues of FF? I don't quite understand. You got Steve Epting doing art in here. You got Juan Bobillo doing the FF issues towards the end. And he reminds me a whole lot of, I think it's Gabriel Walta who does the Lock and Key books. Like, it's a very weird style to look at after reading Steve Epting. And even there's issues here where it switches between Juan Bobillo and Steve Epting, or Juan Bobillo and then switches to Barry Kitson. And like, these 3 styles just do not work. I could understand if you had 2 similar artists on different books, or maybe people that complement each other. Like, to me, Steve Epting and Barry Kitson kind of complement each other. So if you wanted to have Barry Kitson on the FF book and Epting on the Fantastic Four, once that book is resurrected halfway through here, with the return of Johnny Storm, like, you could do that, but they don't. And it's very, very strange to go from one specific style to this ultra cartoony style. Going back to the plot, there's stuff in here that I understood, like the main thrust of it, but by the end, when they actually resolve things, it's just like, it's a deus ex machina. It's just something from out of nowhere that saves everything, even though I'm sure there will be people in the comments that point to things that happen in this book with old Johnny and old Franklin and old Valeria, but all you know is that they're doing something in this one, and you don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it, and then they show up in the end of this one to do it, and you're just like, well, what was the reason for it? And they're just like, hey, yeah, time travel shenanigans, whatever. So I feel like that's a big letdown. And in fact, there's so many things that happen in this book. Like, literally, the chain of events here is the Inhuman cities coming back. The Supremor, the Kree intelligence, artificial grand intelligence, comes back, declares war on the Inhumans, so they go to Earth to destroy it. Meanwhile, you have the Council of Reeds doing shenanigans. Then you have the Annihilation Wave coming to battle and invading Earth. And then you have Johnny coming back in the Annihilation Wave versus the Kree army. And then you have this thing with the Celestials at the very end, these mad Titan, mad god Celestials wanting to kill Reed because of reasons. And then you have Galactus come in to save them from all that, and then old Franklin and old Valeria come up and kind of use Galactus to save the world at the end. It's like, why? How did any one of these lead to another? And they even laid out a timeline in here. Valeria's showing Nathaniel Richards, Reed's dad, her grandfather, like, apparently there's something about, oh, this is the only time this will work. We just need more time. And she lays out a timeline of, like, here's all the crazy things that are going to happen, and I found you 27 minutes in here to avoid some things. And it's just like, looking at that timeline, you're going, man, yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening here, but everything just feels kind of tacked on as opposed to built up or built towards or a cause and effect. Like, literally, the Celestials coming out of nowhere in the middle of this book was something that was like, why are they involved all of a sudden? Very, very strange. So I know they tie in because they created the Inhumans with their experiments and the Kree and all this nonsense. But it's just so much in so little time, and it's like it's literally a rocket ship of a ride, and I was left feeling really, really let down by it because there was no build. Like, the exciting thing about those roller coasters is going up and that anticipation and then that fall. And this one is just takeoff from the very beginning, and you're just on the back of your seat all the time going, why? And then finally at the end, you stop, the engine's cut off, you're out in space, and you're just going like, man, I really did not enjoy that ride. And that's kind of how I feel here about FF Volume 3. So I know this is like somehow a lauded Fantastic Four run, but so far, like, I don't feel like this is a Fantastic Four run. Like, there's a couple of stories in Volume 1 and Volume 2 that, yes, feel like classic FF stories, but this feels like a crossover event story and not an FF story, even though it does involve Doom and things like that. So I know I'm getting to Avengers later and Secret Wars, and I'm going to reread all that. And I loved that stuff when it was coming out, so I'm excited to read that. But man, this just weirdly missed the mark, and I think I was right when this first came out by skipping it in single issues. even though I probably overpaid for all these old out-of-print trade paperbacks now. But I don't know. It's just left me feeling like a little bit disappointed. So that's my thoughts on FF Volume 3, The Complete Collection by Jonathan Hickman. Let me know down below why I'm wrong and what you think is so great about this storyline, because I certainly can't find it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.